The veteran actor William Shatner, who played Captain Kirk in the 60s television series Star Trek, will finally get an opportunity to venture into space at the age of 90.
For a series that became a global television legend, some of its most compelling stories were never seen on screen. Now, at 95, William Shatner returns to the Star Trek set of memory, revealing what really happened behind the iconic scenes. Beyond the uniforms and celebrated episodes were moments of tension, uncertainty, rivalry, and creative clashes that shaped the show's destiny. Decades later, Shatner is exposing a side of production fans rarely hear about. So what truly went on during filming, and why has he chosen to speak out now? Let's explore the interesting details. The story behind Star Trek. More than 50 years have passed since Star Trek first appeared on television, yet its influence still reaches across generations. William Shatner, who became known around the world for playing Captain Kirk, is now looking back on those early days with fresh eyes. At 95, he is sharing memories that many fans never had the chance to hear before. These are not just stories about space adventures or famous episodes, but about the real experiences that happened behind the scenes while the show was being made. Back then, Star Trek was not the guaranteed success it is today. The production faced constant pressure, tight schedules, limited budgets, and strong opinions from many different people involved in the show. Every episode required hard work, quick decisions, and a lot of creativity to bring futuristic ideas to life on a small television budget. But behind the cameras, tensions sometimes rose, and disagreements over direction and performance were not uncommon. Shatner now describes how these challenges shaped not only the show, but also the relationships between cast and crew, many of whom were working together under intense pressure for long hours. Some moments were difficult, while others created strong bonds that lasted long after filming ended. According to Shatner, what fans saw on screen was only part of the story, while the real story was happening between takes, in quiet conversations, rushed setups, and unexpected changes on set. Looking back now, Shatner believes that Star Trek's success was not just about imagination, but about the people who worked tirelessly to make something new and different for television audiences. It was a group of actors, writers, and crew members who argued, laughed, struggled, and solved problems together while trying to build a future that had never been shown on TV before. In the end, Star Trek became more than a show. It became a shared effort that left a lasting mark on television history and on everyone who helped bring it to life. Even today, at 95, Shatner's reflections remind fans that behind every iconic scene were real people facing real challenges. His memories bring a new layer of meaning to a show that continues to inspire millions around the world. Now, as he speaks more openly than ever before, fans are left to wonder what other secrets from the Star Trek set may still be waiting to be revealed after all these years. And perhaps the greatest surprise is not what happened in front of the camera, but everything that unfolded quietly behind it, shaping a legacy that still lives on today more than anyone ever truly realized before now. Decades after the success of Star Trek, William Shatner is revealing the moments fans never saw. But what exactly is he revealing? Could the strong bond and mutual understanding among the cast have played a key role in the show's success? Or even in moments of disagreement, they still managed to work together for the show's success? Let's find out. Behind the scripts. Many of the most unforgettable moments in Star Trek did not appear fully formed on the page. Instead, they were shaped through long discussions, heated debates, and constant changes behind the scenes. What fans saw on screen was often the result of many voices clashing, questioning, and pushing ideas until they finally reached something stronger. During the production of Star Trek, scripts were rarely treated as final. They were rewritten again and again, sometimes just days before filming, and even during production itself. Scenes were adjusted on set when something did not feel right, and new ideas were quickly tested to see if they could improve the story. This constant process of change became a normal part of how Star Trek was made. It was not a smooth or quiet journey, but a fast-moving and sometimes stressful one, where everyone was trying to get it right. William Shatner, who played Captain Kirk, was known for being deeply involved in this process. He did not simply say his lines and move on. Instead, he often questioned parts of the script, suggested changes, and pushed for different approaches when he believed a scene could be stronger. For him, it was not about disagreement for its own sake, but about making the story feel more real, more exciting, and more meaningful for the audience. These strong opinions sometimes created tension on set. Writers and directors did not always agree with the changes being suggested, and this led to moments of frustration and conflict. At times, it slowed production or created pressure within the team. However, even in the middle of these disagreements, there was also a shared goal: to make the show the best it could possibly be. Over time, these creative battles became part of what shaped Star Trek's identity. Instead of weakening the series, they often pushed it in new directions that no one had originally planned. Ideas were tested, challenged, and improved through collaboration, even when it was difficult. What emerged from this process was a show that felt more layered, more dynamic, and more alive than a strictly controlled production might have produced. Looking back, it becomes clear that these behind-the-scenes struggles were not just obstacles. They were also part of the creative engine that helped Star Trek grow into something far greater than anyone had imagined. The disagreements, the rewrites, and the strong personalities all played a role in shaping its legacy. In the end, the series was not just built on science fiction ideas, but on the energy of people who cared enough to argue, rethink, and rebuild until each moment felt right. Shatner reflected that disagreements on set sometimes led to script rewrites during filming. But which characters or actors tended to clash the most on set? What usually triggered these disagreements in the first place? And how did the cast and crew manage to resolve their differences without it becoming obvious on screen? Let's uncover the complicated details. The creative clashes between Star Trek's greatest duo. No relationship on the Star Trek set drew more curiosity than the one between William Shatner and Leonard Nimoy. On screen, they became Captain Kirk and Mr. Spock, one of the most famous partnerships in television history. Their characters stood for logic and emotion, science and instinct, and together they helped shape the heart of the entire franchise. But behind the camera, their relationship was far more complex than what fans saw. From the very beginning, both actors cared deeply about their roles. They were not just performing lines, they were building characters that would become part of popular culture. Because of this, they often worked closely together, discussing scenes, adjusting timing, and finding the best way to deliver each moment. They wanted the story to feel real, and they understood that even small choices could change how a scene landed with the audience. Yet their shared commitment often revealed striking differences. William Shatner brought energy, bold emotions, and a strong sense of drama to every scene, while Leonard Nimoy relied on calm focus, careful thinking, and quiet intensity. Their contrasting styles helped create unforgettable performances, but they also sparked occasional clashes whenever both men felt passionately about how a scene should unfold. At times, the attention surrounding their characters added extra pressure. As the show grew in popularity, fans and media began to focus heavily on both Kirk and Spock, sometimes comparing the two or highlighting one over the other. This increased the sense of competition, even when none was intended. On certain days, small misunderstandings or creative clashes could grow into tension that affected the atmosphere on set. Still, despite these challenges, something important always remained between them: respect for the work they were doing together. No matter the disagreements, both actors understood that the success of Star Trek depended on their connection. When they stepped in front of the camera, that tension often transformed into something powerful. It gave their scenes depth, emotion, and a sense of realism that fans could feel, even without knowing what was happening behind the scenes. Over time, what might have seemed like conflict actually became part of the magic. Their differences helped balance each other out, creating a partnership that felt both unpredictable and perfectly matched. Kirk's passion and Spock's logic became more than just character traits. They became a reflection of the actors who played them. In the end, William Shatner and Leonard Nimoy shared a bond that was far from perfect, yet it was genuine and powerful. Their mix of friendship, rivalry, and creative partnership brought Star Trek to life in a way few shows ever achieve, helping transform it from simple entertainment into an unforgettable cultural legacy. Viewers only saw Shatner and Nimoy's strong performances on screen, which helped make Star Trek a success. But behind the scenes, they sometimes disagreed. Beyond them, what other hidden sides of the crew were kept from public view? And how far did their dedication push them to their limits? Now, let's uncover the exhausting reality behind the Enterprise. The hidden struggles that defined life on set. While Star Trek took viewers across space and time, the reality behind the camera was much harder and far less glamorous. Cast and crew worked under tight schedules, often filming for long hours with very little rest between scenes. Every episode demanded focus, speed, and creativity, because the show had big ideas but limited time and money. Because of this, the pressure was constant, and everyone on set had to keep moving, even when they were exhausted. William Shatner has spoken openly about how draining those years could be, both physically and emotionally, for the entire cast. Many days began early and ended late, with scenes being repeated again and again until everything matched the director's vision. There was little room for error, so even small mistakes meant starting over, which added more stress to an already demanding environment. Despite the challenges, the cast continued working with determination, driven by the belief that they were creating something special. Still, fatigue often built up, and long hours on set could affect moods, patience, and relationships between team members. Even William Shatner has admitted that the pressure sometimes became overwhelming, especially during intense filming periods. Yet despite all of this, the team pushed forward because they believed in the story they were telling and the impact it could have on audiences around the world. The work was not easy, and at times it felt like a race against time, with everyone trying to meet deadlines that seemed almost impossible. But these struggles also helped build strong bonds, as people relied on each other to get through difficult days. In many ways, the pressure became part of the process, shaping not just the episodes, but also the people making them. Looking back, Shatner describes those years as both rewarding and exhausting, filled with moments of pride and moments of strain. He has often reflected on how intense the experience was, especially for a cast trying to do something never done before on television. Even with all the pressure, there was also a sense of pride in what they were building together. That balance between struggle and achievement is part of what makes Star Trek's history so powerful today. And according to Shatner, it is this mix of pressure, passion, and persistence that truly defined the experience behind the scenes. Without it, the show might never have reached the same level of impact, and the world might not remember it the way it does now. These memories show that behind every great episode was a team pushing through exhaustion, disagreement, and pressure, all in service of a vision that changed television history forever. Shatner explained how cast and crew members endured relentless pressure to deliver ambitious episodes within limited time and resources. But what personal effort did Shatner himself put into bringing the role he played to life? And how did his contributions shape the overall success of the series? Now, let's dive into how William Shatner built a legend, a timeless television icon. When William Shatner first stepped into the captain's chair on Star Trek, he was not just acting out lines written on a page. He was taking part in something much bigger, the creation of a character who would go on to become a lasting symbol in television history. From the beginning, Shatner saw Captain James T. Kirk as more than just the leader of a starship. To him, Kirk had to feel like a real person, someone audiences could believe in, understand, and even relate to. Instead of playing a distant or cold commander, Shatner shaped Kirk to be confident but still open, strong but not perfect. He wanted the captain to carry authority without losing his humanity. Kirk could make bold decisions under pressure, but he could also show doubt, emotion, and care for the people around him. This balance was important because it made the character feel alive rather than distant or unreal. Shatner also believed that even a hero in space should have a sense of humor. In moments of danger, when things looked uncertain, Kirk could still show wit or calm charm. This small detail helped soften the character and made him more believable. It reminded viewers that even leaders face fear, pressure, and uncertainty, but still find a way to move forward. To build this version of Kirk, Shatner drew ideas from different sources. He looked at famous leaders from history, people known for courage and decision-making, and combined those traits with everyday human emotions. The result was a character who felt both larger than life and still grounded in reality. Kirk was not just a space captain, he was a reflection of human strength, curiosity, and imperfection. Over time, this approach helped shape one of the most recognizable characters in entertainment. Fans did not just see Kirk as a fictional hero, they saw him as someone they could follow, trust, and even learn from. His confidence inspired many, while his moments of vulnerability made him feel real and relatable. That unique mix, strength paired with warmth, leadership balanced with emotion, and courage softened by humor, became the heart of Captain Kirk's identity. And at the center of it all was Shatner's vision, carefully shaping every detail to bring the character to life. In the end, what began as a role on a television show turned into something far greater. Captain Kirk became a cultural icon, and Shatner's performance helped turn Star Trek into a story that continues to inspire audiences across generations. Shatner went the extra mile to deliver the role he was given, and that dedication helped make him an icon of the series. But was that success achieved without sacrifice? Or did he have to adjust his personal life in ways that affected him and his family? If so, what sacrifices did he make for the success of the show? Let's find out. The emotional price William Shatner paid. As Star Trek grew from a small television project into a worldwide cultural phenomenon, William Shatner's life began to change in ways that went far beyond fame and success. On the outside, he was becoming one of the most recognizable faces in entertainment. Fans around the world saw him as Captain Kirk, a symbol of leadership, confidence, and adventure. But behind that image, his personal life was slowly being shaped by the heavy demands of his career. The work never seemed to stop. Filming schedules were long and unpredictable, often stretching late into the night. Scripts were constantly being rewritten, which meant new pages, new scenes, and sudden changes that required full attention at all times. Between shooting, promotions, and other professional duties, Shatner found himself pulled further and further into the world of Star Trek, leaving very little time for anything else. As the pressure of success grew, so did the distance in his personal life. Time at home became shorter and more limited. Important family moments were missed, including celebrations, gatherings, and milestones that could never be repeated. While his career was reaching new heights, parts of his private world were quietly slipping away. The demands of being Captain Kirk on screen often meant being absent in real life. Over time, this constant imbalance began to affect his relationships. The long hours and non-stop commitments made it difficult to maintain the same level of connection with loved ones. Even when he was physically present, the exhaustion from work sometimes left little energy for anything else. Like many actors caught in the rush of sudden fame, Shatner experienced both the rewards and the hidden costs that come with being part of a global hit. Looking back now, he has spoken honestly about those years. He not only remembers the excitement and success, but also the personal sacrifices that came with it. There is pride in what was achieved, but also reflection on what was lost along the way. The fame that brought him recognition across the world also came with a quieter, more personal price that was not visible to fans. In his own words, those years were a mix of opportunity and absence, moments of great achievement, balanced with moments he can never get back. And while Star Trek gave him a place in history, it also shaped his personal life in ways that left lasting memories, both good and difficult, that he still carries with him today. Shatner sacrificed quality time with his family, among other personal comforts, to deliver a powerful performance that helped shape the success of Star Trek. But what prepared him for such a deep commitment? Could his childhood journey have played a role in building that strength and discipline? Now, let's delve into the journey that prepared him for stardom. The quiet beginnings. Long before Star Trek changed his life forever, William Shatner was already on a steady path toward becoming an actor. His story did not begin with fame or red carpets, but in a much quieter and more ordinary way, shaped by curiosity, hard work, and a growing love for performance. Shatner was born in Montreal, Canada, during a powerful snowstorm that people still like to mention when telling his story. From a young age, he showed signs of imagination and creativity. He was drawn to stories, voices, and characters, and he enjoyed the idea of stepping into someone else's world, even if only for a moment. That early interest slowly turned into something deeper, a real passion for acting. As he grew older, that passion became more serious. His time at McGill University helped him develop both discipline and confidence. There, he began to explore acting more formally, taking part in student performances and learning the basics of stage work. It was not always easy, but each experience helped him understand what it meant to perform in front of an audience. He learned how to control his voice, use his emotions, and connect with people through storytelling. After university, Shatner stepped into the world of theater, where the challenges were even greater. Stage acting demanded focus, energy, and consistency. Every performance had to feel real, no matter how many times it was repeated. He worked in different productions, taking on a variety of roles that tested his range and ability. These early theater years were important, even if they did not bring instant fame. They gave him experience, patience, and a strong foundation. In addition to theater, Shatner also began appearing on television. The 1950s and 1960s were a time of growth for TV, and he took advantage of every opportunity that came his way. He played different characters in different shows, proving that he could adapt to many roles. Sometimes he was a guest actor, other times a supporting character, but each appearance added to his reputation as a reliable and talented performer. Step by step, without realizing it at the time, he was building something important. Every role, every rehearsal, and every performance was preparing him for a future he could not yet see. He was learning how to carry a story, how to hold attention, and how to bring characters to life in a way that felt believable. As the years passed, it became clear that William Shatner's early experiences were quietly preparing him for something extraordinary. Long before he commanded the enterprise, he was developing the confidence, skill, and presence that would eventually help him become one of television's most unforgettable leading actors. Beyond William Shatner's childhood background, which helped shape his strength and prepared him for a decisive role in Star Trek, what unique style did he bring to the series that most viewers don't fully understand? And what influenced that signature pattern in his performance? Let's uncover the astonishing details. The birth of a legend. For decades, fans around the world have tried to copy Captain Kirk's famous way of speaking. The slow rhythm, the dramatic pauses, and the unusual spacing between words became something instantly recognizable. It turned into a kind of signature style for William Shatner, and many people believed it was carefully planned from the start. To viewers, it made Captain Kirk sound powerful, thoughtful, and larger than life, as if every word carried extra meaning. But the real story behind that speaking style is more practical and more interesting than most people realize. William Shatner later explained that the famous pauses were not always meant to be a dramatic effect. Instead, they often came from the way he approached acting in the moment. Rather than simply reciting lines quickly, he tried to make the dialogue feel like real thoughts forming as he spoke. In his mind, Kirk was not reading a script. He was thinking, reacting, and speaking at the same time, just like a real person would in a high-pressure situation. There was also another very simple reason behind the rhythm. Star Trek scripts were often filled with long explanations, technical terms, and complex ideas about space, science, and future technology. Sometimes, the lines were heavy and required careful attention just to deliver correctly. In those moments, Shatner used pauses as a way to stay in control of the dialogue, giving himself time to process what came next while still staying in character. What started as a practical acting method slowly became something much bigger. Over time, those pauses blended into the identity of Captain Kirk himself. Instead of sounding like a mistake or a delay, They began to feel intentional, like part of the character's personality. Viewers began to associate that rhythm with confidence and authority, even though it was originally born from a very human need to manage difficult dialogue. As Star Trek gained popularity, the Kirk pause became one of its most talked-about features. Fans began imitating it, comedians used it in sketches, and it slowly turned into a cultural reference that spread far beyond the show itself. What began as a simple acting choice ended up shaping how an entire generation remembered a character. Even today, decades later, that distinctive speaking style is still closely linked to William Shatner. It remains one of the most recognizable vocal patterns in television history, proving how something small and practical on set can grow into a lasting signature that defines both a character and the actor who played him. William Shatner developed a unique speaking style that became one of the defining features of his character in Star Trek. But did this distinctive approach help him achieve even greater success after the series ended? Or did he face unexpected challenges despite his popularity? And did his Star Trek fame open the door to major opportunities across the entertainment industry? Let's find out. A lifetime of resilience and global fame. Ironically, when Star Trek first came to an end on television, it did not bring relief or celebration for William Shatner. Instead, it marked the beginning of one of the most difficult periods in his life. The show that had made him a household name suddenly stopped, and with it came an uncertain future. Work became harder to find, opportunities slowed down, and the steady recognition he once enjoyed began to fade. Like many actors whose careers are tied closely to a single role, Shatner found himself facing a harsh reality. Fame does not always guarantee stability. In those early years after cancellation, he struggled to rebuild his place in the industry. Roles were not coming as easily, and financial pressure began to grow. At times, the situation became serious enough to force him to accept work that was far from the level of success he had once known. It was a painful shift, from leading one of television's most popular series to fighting for smaller opportunities just to keep moving forward. These years tested not only his career, but also his patience and confidence. Yet, even in this uncertain period, Shatner's story did not come to an end. Instead, it slowly began to turn in a surprising direction. Years later, Star Trek was brought back to life through a series of major blockbuster films. What many once believed was the end of the franchise turned into a powerful new beginning. For Shatner, it became a chance to return to the role that had defined him, but this time on an even larger stage. The success of the films opened new doors that went far beyond acting alone. He expanded into television work, explored business opportunities, and even found success as a writer, sharing stories and reflections from his life and career. He also stepped into music projects and public speaking, showing a side of himself that fans had never seen before. In a surprising twist, his connection to Star Trek even led to real-world space-related experiences, bringing his fictional journey full circle in an unexpected way. Now, at 95 years old, William Shatner looks back on a life filled with highs and lows, successes and setbacks. His reflections are not just about the making of Star Trek, but about everything that came after, the struggles, the reinventions, and the moments of resilience that defined his path. He does not only tell the story of a famous actor, but of a man who had to start over more than once. His journey stands as a powerful reminder that success is not always a straight line. Sometimes it fades, sometimes it returns in a new form, and sometimes it grows in ways no one could have predicted. And in Shatner's case, it shows that some of life's most meaningful chapters begin long after the world assumes the story is already finished. So, what do you think about William Shatner's revelation? Which detail surprised you the most? We would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe.